This is my Father's world, and to my listening ears, all nature sings and round me rings the music of the spheres. This is my Father's world, I rest me in the thought of rocks and trees, of skies and seas, His hand the wonders wrought. You're listening to That Other Life. I'm your host, Richard Haddad. Maltby D. Babcock is the writer of that song. This is my Father's world. The second verse says, This is my Father's world. The birds their carols raise. The morning light, the lily white, declare their Maker's praise. This is my Father's world. He shines in all that's fair. In the rustling grass I hear Him pass. He speaks to me everywhere. Today I wanted to speak to you about Kendrick, the chef. See, Kendrick is no ordinary chef, and you'll soon see why. Kendrick knows thousands of meals. He is a master of many cuisines, and he knows ingredients like the Oxford Dictionary knows definitions. If you ever taste his food, you'll never want to taste food anywhere else. He makes a good meal even better. He can tell you which cut of meat is the better one to use for each meal, which way to cut vegetables to get the freshest smell and the best texture, which spices to use and which ones to lose. Kendrick is an amazing chef. Now I know what you're thinking, so what? My mom can do that. In fact, many good cooks can do that. Now keep your shirt on, it gets better. If you offer Kendrick a meal, he can tell you the ingredients. He knows what's in the meal, what's missing from the meal, what the meal has too much of, and what it doesn't have enough of. And he can do that either by looking at the meal or smelling it from the other room. Now, can your mum do that? Maybe. If she's an amazing chef too, absolutely maybe. But not like Kendrick though. If you give him a bite of a piece of meat while he's blindfolded and his nose blocked, from the texture and taste alone, he can tell you what part of the cow the piece of meat came from. Now, if you're still not convinced, I won't blame you. So far, everything I've said Kendrick can do doesn't seem so impossible. After all, that's his job. He's a chef. You expect him to know what he's doing. I'm about to blow your mind. See, if you give Kendrick as complicated a meal as you can get, not only will he tell you everything that meal was made of, he can tell you what the meal was made on. Yeah, you heard me right. He can tell you what type of chopping board you used, the shape of it, the size of it, the material of it. Nope, not good enough, you say? He can tell you what type of tree that chopping board was made from, how old, in days, that tree was when it was cut. He can tell you how many leaves that tree had on the day that it was cut. He can taste it in the vegetables. I can hear your doubts. Even though this podcast isn't live, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, no way. No way. At best, he can guess. Guess? Maybe. But do you think he also guesses the number of ants that were standing on the tree when it was cut? Does he guess what season it was when the tree was first planted from a seed? Does he also guess the color of the hair of the farmer who planted that tree? Does he guess the sport that farmer's grandpa got a gold medal for? Or the temperature on the day that the farmer's grandpa was born? Have I lost you yet? You're thinking that's impossible, right? He wasn't even alive when the grandpa of the farmer who planted the tree from a seed was born, let alone to know everything else. Ridiculous, right? Yeah, I agree with you. It is ridiculous. As long as we are talking about food, you can understand and agree that it is possible to pinpoint ingredients even if Kendrick didn't make the exact meal. Kendrick could have studied many cuisines and thousands of meals from each different cuisine. All that is plausible. He's a chef, and a good chef masters his skill, right? But all that nonsense about things that happened before the chef was born, things he couldn't possibly have any proof or evidence of, the number of leaves on the tree, the number of ants walking on the tree. Now, unless someone studied it, observed it, recorded it, there's just no way of knowing. At best, at absolute best, you can take a shot in the dark and hope to get something close. Kendrick just doesn't seem so genuine anymore, does he? Surely, no one like Kendrick exists who claims to know that sort of information. Well, if you think that, you'd be mistaken. You see, Kendrick isn't really Kendrick, and he isn't really a chef. No. Kendrick is a scientist. He's a scientist that makes a big claim. To be exact, Kendrick's actual claim is so outrageous that it would be more plausible to believe what I said before about the tree and the chopping board and the ants and the leaves. That is more plausible, believe me, than it is to believe what he's actually suggesting. What's Kendrick's claim, you ask? Simple. Kendrick claims that his science can tell you what happened 4.5 billion years ago. Is Kendrick right? Well, he wasn't there. No one was. And yet Kendrick teaches his claim as though it were fact. The problem with Kendrick's claim is that he stands by it because he claims science was able to back his findings. The problem is that that's not what science does. You can use science to observe, you can use science to test. The claims that some scientists are currently making about the origin of the universe are simply untestable. They're unobservable. It doesn't even matter whether the claims are true or not because you can't use science to test them. If a claim can't be tested or repeated, it isn't science. It's history. If something happened a long, long time ago, that's history. That's the only way you can know it. If someone recorded it, if someone wrote it in a book, on a paper, something, it's not science unless you can repeat it. Now, science is perfect when someone wants to explain the now. What is happening, why it's happening, and how it happens. Science can't help you look at a one-time event, run some numbers, and say, this is exactly what happened. Now, having said that, scientists definitely can make a guess, called a theory. Maybe this happened. And then try to find evidence for it. What's the problem? Well, the same scientists who are pushing the Big Bang Theory are the same ones who tell you that miracles or once-in-a-lifetime events cannot happen. It just doesn't make sense. Well, what about the Big Bang? See, the point of this podcast isn't to make any scientific claim. I'll leave that for the real genuine scientists. Scientists who are really looking for the truth. And if you think that every scientist agrees in the Big Bang Theory, you'd be very wrong. Many scientists, even non-Christian scientists, scientists that don't even believe in God, any God, disagree with the Big Bang Theory. Why? Because science isn't history. And unless we can reproduce an event, then it is mere speculation. Why am I even mentioning all of this? Well, it's to remind you that whenever anyone tells you that science has provided proof of the Big Bang Theory, don't be bullied by them. The proof we have for the Big Bang is less reliable than the proof that Kendrick, who isn't even a chef by the way, has for how many ants weren't on the tree that the farmer never planted, which was not used to make the chopping board that the vegetables weren't even cut on. Don't be bullied by people who don't believe in God and are willing to believe in anything as long as it doesn't point to Him. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, does that sound like science? No. But it does sound like history. And I think that that's a little more credible when it comes to something that happened many, many, many years ago. I'm sure you have questions, and I'm sure you have opinions. Send them through to opinions@thatotherlife.com. That's opinions, OPINIONS, @thatotherlife.com. I'm happy to share many resources, both Christians and not, that will back what I've said today. Thank you for listening. I'm Richard Haddad, and these have been my thoughts on That Other Life.